What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new around here, my name is Hannah. If you're not new, welcome back. As you can tell by the title of today's video, we are going to be doing a what I spent on the week as a 26-year-old living in Denver, Colorado. I have made a few of these before, but I was living in New York City / Jersey City when I made those videos, so obviously they're gonna look very different than what I'm spending living in Denver, Colorado, which is why I kind of thought it would be fun to make this video. A little bit of a background on me. If you don't watch the vlogs, I am temporarily living in Denver, Colorado. We're kind of just like feeling out the area to see if we would potentially one day want to plant roots here. Both of our jobs, my boyfriend and I's jobs, are remote, so we kind of have the flexibility to do stuff like this, and we felt as though while we have the flexibility, why not try out a few different cities to see where we would maybe want to end up one day. Ultimately, New York City / Jersey City is probably not going to be it for us in the long run. Who knows, we may end up back there again for a few years, but I think end goal would be to move somewhere where we could buy a house and raise kids and have a car and the whole 9 yards. So all that to say, I've really enjoyed my time out here, and it's been so different living out here compared to living in New York City, and a big part of that has to do with recurring expenses, daily expenses, weekly expenses. It's just so different here than it is in New York. It is, at the end of the day, way cheaper for us to live here than it was in New York City. I feel like that goes without saying. New York City is just a very expensive city, so it's been really nice to be here and save money, but also compare what we were spending in New York to what we were spending here. Now that you have a little bit of a background on me and kind of like my situation, let's get into the whole reason that you guys clicked on today's video. I'm breaking up this video into two parts. So the first part is going to be breaking down the reoccurring expenses, aka the monthly expenses that are kind of on a auto pay, and then the second part is going to be weekly expenses, aka what I spent from Monday through Sunday last week. At the end, we'll total it all up for you guys so you can kind of get a feel of what we spend in a week on average. Another disclaimer is that I do live with my boyfriend, so a lot of the expenses that we have, we split, such as rent, car insurance, storage units, going out to eat, things of that sort. So my expenses may either seem higher to some people or lower depending on what the item is. Just putting that disclaimer out there. Let's go ahead and start with reoccurring expenses. So I have several reoccurring expenses that happen every single month. I'll tell you how much they are monthly, and then I'll also give you the weekly breakdown. So first reoccurring expense is Kindle Unlimited. On a monthly basis, this is $12.78, which comes down to $3.20 per week. Next is Google Storage. That is $2.19 a month, and that comes down to 55 cents a week. That's probably the cheapest recurring expense that I have on here. Next is Apple Storage. I pay $9.99 per month, and that breaks down to $2.50 per week. Epidemic Sound, which is where I get all my copyright free music for YouTube and social media, is $17.99 per month, and that breaks down to $4.50 per week. Now into the streaming services area, and we have a lot of streaming services because we share them with family members, so it seems like a lot, and it is a lot, but it just is what works for us. First is Disney Plus. We pay $11.73 per month, and that breaks down to $2.93 a week. After that is Hulu. That's $8.52 per month, and then that breaks down to $2.13 a week. Peacock is $2.99 per month, which breaks down to 75 cents per week. Paramount Plus is $5.99 per month, and that breaks down to $1.50 per week. The next few items are items that I do split with my boyfriend. We split these 50-50. So it's gonna seem cheaper to you guys because I am splitting it with another person, whereas if I wasn't splitting it with another person, I would be paying more for these, obviously, so just keep that in mind. Car insurance is $48.50 per month, which breaks down to $12.13 per week. We have 2 storage units back in New Jersey that has all of our furniture from our New York City apartment, and the first one is $46.38 per month, and that breaks down to $11.60 per week. The second storage unit, my part, is $71.44 per month, and that breaks down to $17.86 per week. And then the Airbnb, which is where we're staying, is $1,086 per month, and that breaks down to $271.50 per week. That one does fluctuate depending on the month. We're staying in an Airbnb where it's on a month-to-month basis, so this isn't like a short-term rental. I think they categorize on Airbnb as like a long-term monthly rental, and depending on the month, the Airbnb could be more or less. I don't really know how Airbnb calculates that on their back end, but some months it has been more than this and some months it has been less than this. This is definitely one of the cheaper months in my opinion. That's kind of like where that's at and why I have the fluctuates column on the far right. And then next we're getting into savings and finances. I break down my savings per paycheck, so I'll contribute a part of my savings first paycheck of the month, and then also contribute to my Roth IRA first paycheck of the month, and then second paycheck of the month I'll contribute my second part of my savings and the second Roth IRA part, if that makes sense. So the first paycheck of the month I contributed $250 to savings, and that breaks down to $62.50 per week. And then the second paycheck of the month I contributed $450, and that breaks down to $112.50 per week. And then Roth IRA, both are $50 per paycheck, and then that breaks down to $12.50 per week. Overall, reoccurring monthly expenses, $2,124.48 per month, and on a weekly basis that would be $531.12. These numbers always shock me every single time I do these videos. I don't really feel like I'm spending money when things are on auto pay and are just like automatically being taken out of my bank account, but it is nice to break it down like this just to see like what I'm actually spending in a month, and if there are ways that I could definitely cut back, or if I feel like I'm at a good place. It's just always good to have that little reflection. Moving on to weekly expenses. These are expenses that change on a weekly basis just depending on what we're doing. If we have activities planned, if I have car maintenance, if I'm going to a workout, if we're going out to eat, groceries, the whole 9 yards. These are things that definitely like fluctuate on a weekly basis. So the first part of the week, aka Monday and Tuesday, were actually really good because I didn't spend any money. I don't think I left the apartment, and if I did, it was to go for a walk outside. So I didn't end up spending any money, which is really great. So we're skipping forward to Wednesday. On Wednesday, I had my first physical therapy session, and that was $10.50. After that, I decided to treat myself to a little bit of Chick-fil-A because I was starving, and we don't really eat Chick-fil-A that often, and it was right there, so why not? And that ended up being $21.96. That was all that I spent for Wednesday. Moving on to Thursday, I ended up buying a Kindle book, which I don't buy Kindle books that often because I do have Kindle Unlimited, and then I also have the Libby app, but every now and then I do splurge on a Kindle book if it's a book that I've been really wanting to read. So I decided to splurge on Thursday, treat myself a little bit, and that Kindle book ended up being $11.99. After that, I ended up going to Whole Foods to get a few groceries and snacks for the night, and that ended up being $25.27. Whole Food is like just notoriously expensive, so I try really hard not to go too often, but we go to Whole Foods like way too much in my opinion, and grocery bills are just always very pricey there, even if you only end up getting 1 or 2 items. After Whole Foods, I ended up getting a facial. The facial itself was actually covered through ClassPass. I had some leftover credits from last month, and I decided to treat myself to a facial, so I only had to do the tip for the facial, which ended up being $20. Friday, I didn't spend anything. We did end up going out to eat on Friday, but John paid for my meal, so very grateful for that. I didn't end up having to pay for that. And then we fast forward to Saturday, which we had a lot of expenses on Saturday, so buckle in. I decided to go out and about and go shopping at Target. Target always gets me. I never go in with a list for Target. I just let Target speak to me, and Target clearly spoke to me this day because I ended up with 2 different transactions for Target. First one was $103.95. I ended up buying a few new workout sets that I've been wanting, and then also some chocolates and sweet treats because I went in on an empty stomach, which I never suggest doing, but the sweet treats got to me. I ended up actually coming home from Target that night and ordering a set that they didn't have in my size in the store, so that's what this additional $47.98 charge is from Target. I'm telling you guys, they have good workout sets for the spring/summer. So proceed with caution when you go in there, but also I would highly recommend. After Target, I decided that I wanted to get a sweet tea from Chick-fil-A. I know I just said that I never go to Chick-fil-A, but when there is a Chick-fil-A in the area, I will be stopping to get a sweet tea. I cannot help it. I am a sweet tea girl. I just absolutely love it. So that's what we ended up doing, and that was $3.12. And then after Target, Chick-fil-A, the car desperately needed a wash, so I ended up taking it through a car wash, and that was $10, which honestly isn't that bad for a car wash in my opinion, because they also have free vacuums outside the car wash. So every single time I take it through that, I just pull over and also vacuum out my car. It's like killing two birds with one stone. So that was really nice. And that was all I spent for Saturday. It was a good amount, so we definitely needed to chill out at night. And we ended up actually just buying like a rotisserie chicken from Whole Foods, which John also paid for, but it's because I paid for groceries on Sunday, which you'll see in a second. Sunday, the first charge was Amazon face towels, which is $19.81. Then later on the day, we decided to do our weekly grocery trip, which ended up being $109.33 from King Soopers. King Soopers is probably like the most affordable grocery store in this area. I don't know if there's an Aldi out here, and I don't really shop at Aldi that often. I guess Aldi would be probably the cheapest grocery store, but we just really like King Soopers, and it's where we end up buying the majority of our weekly groceries from when we're not going to Whole Foods. So that's why the bill is a little bit pricier. We sometimes split groceries, sometimes don't. He paid for both meals that we had out this past weekend, so I just decided to pay for groceries myself. So that's also like why it's a little bit hefty on the grocery bill here, because normally we would split it, but because he paid for meals out, I decided to buy the groceries this week. And then last but not least for the week, I fell victim to a Stanley Cup. I actually have the Stanley Cup right here. Isn't she adorable? She's really cute. I love her. I did actually end up staining her a few hours after we got home, which I'm a little upset about, but I fell victim to the Stanley Cup. I only have one Stanley Cup. This is my second, and I love her, and I think it was a great investment. Unfortunately, it was $48.96. Don't love that, but I use my Stanley Cup all the time, so I knew it was going to be put to great use if I ended up investing in a second one, which is why I was okay with it. So the total bill for all of my weekly expenses this week, Monday through Sunday, ended up being $432.87. I largely blame this bill and this total on Target. I don't splurge on clothes that often anymore. I used to be really bad about it, but Target really got me this week. So if we didn't have that Target bill, the weekly expenses would probably be a little bit lower this week, but you do have to treat yourself every now and then, and I clearly decided to treat myself this week. Overall, monthly reoccurring expenses plus weekly expenses, my total for the week ends up being $963. Compared to what I was paying in New York City, this is actually a good number. It may seem like a lot to some, and I am not saying that it's not a lot, but just compared to what we paid previously, having a weekly bill that's under $1,000 is actually like really good. Obviously, a large portion of the bill is the Airbnb payment. It's similar to if you were paying rent. You can't get out of that unless you live with family members or live in a place where you paid off your entire mortgage. You're always going to have a rent payment or a mortgage payment or an Airbnb payment. So a huge portion of this bill is the $271.50 per week for the Airbnb. And then I would say that the second biggest chunk ends up being my savings, because now that we live in a place where we can afford to put a good chunk away in savings, I'm using that opportunity to put a ton in savings for the future. So I would say that that ends up being another huge chunk of the bill. If we didn't have those two things, you could split this overall weekly total directly in half, but I'm not gonna do that, nor can I do that, nor do I want to do that. So that's just what it ends up being. And I don't know why I feel like I have to justify that, but I just feel like someone's gonna comment like, oh my god, that is a huge weekly bill. But a lot of it does have to do with the Airbnb payment and savings and things like that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's what I end up spending in a week as a 26, almost 27-year-old living in Denver, Colorado. I hope this video was informative for you guys. I love watching videos like this in different areas because I feel like you can get a good feel for how much you would ultimately spend in an area through these videos. These videos can be helpful and informational to people that are potentially looking to move to these areas. So I hope it was helpful for you. Like I said, a lot of these things could fluctuate and change depending on you as a person, if you're splitting your expenses with someone else, if you're splitting your expenses with roommates. But this is just my situation and ultimately what I spend in a week. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to subscribe down below, give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.